So,
Okay. So,
um,
yeah,
so
go
this
ahead.
will be my second time to tell a story, especially in front of professionals, and I'm just as nervous as my first time. Um, but let me try my best here. Well, I originally planned to tell a story, a personal story, but then similar to that of Jaya, because I also have an autistic child. But then I ended up changing it because I really don't know how to separate myself from the story. So I ended up with this story. It's a simple story. It's I'm not sure if you have heard of it, but it's a simple story. It's quite symbolic, so it's gonna be up to you how you would interpret it. Okay. So the story, the story is entitled "The Story of the Two Most Beautiful Women in the Village." So a long time ago, at the edge of one village, there lived in the same house two extremely beautiful women. I'm sorry. Now, these two women were really exceedingly beautiful. One day, they were having a slight discussion, and their discussion started to go into an argument. One of them said, I am more beautiful than you. In fact, I am the most beautiful woman in this village. The other one said, Oh, really? Truth? Everyone has been telling me I am the most beautiful in the village. So they had been arguing about who is much more beautiful between the two of them, who is the most beautiful woman in the village, and who would be most accepted by the people of the village. So of course, neither of them give in. So their argument started to heat up. So eventually, they decided to end the siege, or to end the argument. They decided to have a contest. Okay? One of them said, "All right, Truth, then let's hear it from the villagers." Truth said, "Well, the villagers has been have told it several times that I am the most beautiful in the village. Now, if you want to hear it for yourself, then I'll go for it." So they agreed to have the contest the following day. Now, on the day of the contest, Truth went first. The contest was to go down the village and see who is the most accepted, who had more friends between the two of them. So on the day of the contest, Truth went first. So Truth went down the village, and as she was walking down the village, the people who were outside their yards started to turn back into their houses. She moved a little further into the village, and the people up in their windows started closing their doors. Their windows, the shutters of their windows, I mean. Truth continued to walk towards the end of the village, and when she got there, she turned back and started thinking for herself. She was thinking, what is wrong with these people? Okay? I would lose this contest if they keep on doing that. What do they want? Said Truth. So she started thinking deeply, and she thought she came up with a bright idea. She thought she only had one thing left to do. So slowly, she took off her clothes, all of her clothes, and she stood there completely naked. Truth walked back to the village, thinking that the people would see and go for her once they see her. But what happened was different. When she walked back to the village, There were very few remaining people outside their houses. But those very few remaining people were shocked upon seeing Truth. One of them said, "Oh my God, she's even more worse than a while ago. Disgustingly horrible." And since it was silent everywhere else, Truth could hearly Truth could hear clearly what they had been saying. And so Truth went back home feeling really sad about what happened. When she got home, she met Story. So she wiped off her tears and tried to pretend that everything went well. Story asked her, "Hey, Truth, how was it? Was it good?" "Oh, you wouldn't believe it, Story, but there was no one there. The village was empty," said Story. "Oh, really? Well, let me see for myself. The villagers must be just inside their houses." So Story went out to the village and tried to see for herself. Story went down the village, and as she walked through the village, the people behind those windows and behind those doors started to see her. And so they went out of the village and started to mingle with her. Together, they danced and sing along the street, and they traveled across the street towards the end of the village. When they reached the village, Story turned back and walked back to the village. The crowd that was following her also turned back and went back to the village. They all gathered at the center of the village and they partied all day long. When it was almost nighttime, Story bid them goodbye and she started to walk towards home. When she got home, she saw Truth still waiting at home. All the while, Truth saw what has happened, and she felt sorry about herself. But humbly, she said, "I'm sorry, Story, I lost the game. I realized that stories are more powerful than the truth." But Story answered, "No, Truth, it's not that stories are more powerful than the truth. It's just that nobody liked the truth, especially that they don't like the naked truth." And so, seeing Truth bare naked, Story took a colorful coat out of his closet and wrapped it around Truth. That ends the story. Thank you.
You have a lovely way of sharing your story. You're as you said, this is your second time in public. It you don't it might strengthen you to recognize that you can just change your mannerisms. You don't have to look a certain way for people to understand that the stories are different characters. However, I did get a difference in the characters from you, which I appreciated. And I've heard variations of that story, um, but never that one. So I thank you for sharing a version that I hadn't heard before, and providing it. It was very nice because every time you hear a different version, it enriches the basic story for you. So I I I like where you're going with the story. I would say work on it a little bit more so that you put more of you in it. because the more of you in it is what makes it unique, and it is such a great fable. You know, it's one of those stories that have passed on for years and years, and it's nice for people to recognize that, you know, as much as we say we really want the naked truth, unless it's draped in something interesting, we really don't want to face it straight on. So, and that's a good story to share with your friends and family and people you meet. So, thank you so much for sharing it with me today.
Thank you too. Thank you, Ma'am Judy.
Hi, Mary Grace. This is Lena here.
Hi, Lena. It's nice
Hi.
to see you again.
Yeah, and same here. I remember the last time that mermaid story you had read, and Eric had given you 6 months, but you did it before. You got rid of the paper and you told the story. Very nice. That was fast progress. Keep it up. Nice story, nice narration.
Thank you, Lena.
On the lines of Lena, even I was going to say that, Mar, you did a very good job. You know, like last time you were reading it out and you were nervous, but today you were really very, very, very confident.
Still nervous.
Yeah, but I think, as Lena rightly put it, improve better than the first version. So I think every time we tell it, the more we tell, it's like a learning experience for us. So
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Thanks for being kind for all of your comments.
Can I ask what drew you to this story, Ma?
Well, originally I actually planned to tell a personal story, but then I really feared that I might not separate my role as the storyteller and the character and as the character. So I ended up with this story. This story, I heard of it way back in college, and since we were talking about, um, in a sense, I believe it somehow relates to healing, because for some people, um, it takes good storytelling for them to say what to get their stories through. So sometimes it is it's just necessary for them to understand that it's just in the way of telling their stories for others to help them.
One way to work with personal material and still have some distance is to tell it in the third person. In other words, instead of saying, I did this, you could make up a character and say, she did this, you see? So you project it onto an external character, and it's really your experiences, although you can change it along the way, but that's a way to get some distance. And so I hope you do that sometime. I hope you do tell a personal experience, not necessarily about your child, but some personal experience, either telling it, I did such and such, or telling it, she did such and such. I think that'll be a good exercise for you to, uh, you know, tell it in a very realistic way.
Yes, Eric. I'll try to do that maybe soon. Because
Anytime.
there are personal stories that I really love to tell, but then sometimes I fear telling them from the first person point of view, because I don't know. Well, I think it's gonna be a bit challenging.
Mm-hmm. And of course, with this group, if you tell it third person that she did such and such, we'll probably know it's about you, right? So
Right.
whatever. Although you can really, if you make changes, that's how many people, write movies and novels. They take their own experiences and they project it onto characters, they change it, and that's how many professional creative writers work. Well, you might try that. Okay. Good work.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Eric,
Thank
for
you.
this opportunity again.
Of course. Thank you for engaging in the process. You're coming along. Okay, Mira, there you are, right in the middle. Just a